Welcome to step number 2 of the Cornrow Tree Braiding Hairstyle. In this step, I will be teaching you step by step how to do the Cornrow Tree Braiding technique. Before we begin, I want you to know that this style is an advanced hairstyle. You first have to know how to cornrow braid with extensions to be able to do this look effectively. If you already know how to do so, learning this style will become pretty easy to you. But if not, be sure to check out howtoblackhair.breannarutter to purchase the Cornrow Braiding DVD. In that DVD, I will teach you how to cornrow braid with and without extensions. So in order to prepare for braiding our hair, I will first show you how to pre-section your pieces of hair to feed into your cornrow braid. And then I will show you how to part and section your real hair in preparation for the Cornrow Tree Braiding technique. The very first thing that we're going to do is pre-section our braiding hair. When sectioning your pieces, aim to section about 10 to 15 identical pieces of extension hair. This will ensure that your braid will look identical and you will have just enough hair to feed into your braids. When you first start braiding, the braids that are closer to your ear are a little bit shorter in distance than the braids are in the middle of your head. So it's okay to measure more pieces if you need so. We're going to measure about 10 pieces because our first braid is usually the shortest braid of distance across our head. So what you're going to do, you're going to pinch off a very small amount of extension hair and you're going to pinch off about 10 pieces. It's very important that you already have experience with braiding with extension hair so that you have a feel for the consistency that you need per piece of hair. So depending on the size of your braid, if you're braiding small, medium, or large size braids, you're going to pinch off a piece of hair accordingly. So my braids are going to be demonstrated in a span of about small to medium, so I'm going to pinch off a very small amount of hair. You want to pinch off a little less hair than what you would do if you're doing a cornrow braid. So if I'm doing small cornrow braids, I would usually pinch off about this much hair. But you want to pinch off less than that because this style can look very full very fast. So pinch off less than what you typically would per braid size, and that will serve as your piece of extension hair to feed into your cornrow braid. Once you've pre-sectioned your pieces of braiding hair, you will now begin to part your hair for your very first cornrow tree braid. When you've sectioned your pieces of braiding hair, you've already determined the size braid that you want. So if you want small, medium, or large size cornrow tree braids, make sure you've sectioned your hair accordingly. So as we begin parting, you want to make sure to part a thin or small rectangular amount of hair at the very back of your head. So from one side of the back of your head to the other side, you're going to part a straight line and that section of hair will look like a rectangle. That rectangle will be split in two. You will have a braid here that meets to the middle of your head at the very back, and then you will have a braid on this side that meets to the middle in the very back. The reason why you're going to part your hair for those braids is because when your style is finished, you will be able to pull all of your hair up into a ponytail while also concealing the very back of your head. So first, we're going to part a rectangular amount at the very back of our head and braid that hair to keep it preserved until the very end. And then you're going to part your very first braid here on the right side of my head is where I will be demonstrating to show you how to do the cornrow tree braiding technique. When doing your cornrow tree braids, certain braids will have hair that flows in a downward direction. So the very first braid you're going to braid closest to your ear on the right side of your head. The braid you're going to braid closest to the left side of your head. And the two braids that you're going to braid in the back, when you add the extension hair, the hair has to flow downward only on these two immediate braids and the two braids that will be braided in the back. Remember, the two braids that will be braided in the back will start from one side of the ear to the other, and their braid will come towards together. So this is a braid and this is a braid. You just want to start at both points in the back of your head. This braid will flow in this direction, and then this braid will flow in this direction. So make sure that on those two back braids and these two side braids, just one here and one here, that when you add the hair, it flows downward. The same in the back, all of the hair should flow downward. So when a style is finished, you can put it all up into a ponytail and the hair will conceal the braids even more. So as I do this very first braid here on the right side of my head, I will show you how to do the tree braiding technique so that all of the hair will flow downward. So once you've done this braid, and those two braids with all of the hair flowing downward, the rest of your braids on your head will have hair that alternately come out of both sides of the braid. Also, when any of your braids leave your scalp, make sure to take out pieces of hair along the ends to conceal the braid even further. So I'm going to demonstrate with the very first braid how to specifically do on your both side edges in the back. I will be showing you on my first braid here. So you start off by cornrow braiding with extensions. This is an advanced style. So as you cornrow braid with extensions, you will then add pieces of hair along the way. So I'm going to grab my first section of hair and I'm going to prepare it in my hands just like I do a cornrow braid with extension. I pinch off a third from the 2/3 of the hair. I separate it. I wrap the third that's smaller around the bigger portion of hair, and I position the hair in my fingers to begin braiding. This is a very small amount of hair because my braids are going to be medium to small size. So if your braids are bigger, you're going to add more hair according to what you like. So now I'm just going to begin braiding. As you're braiding, you want to make sure that your section is already parted as you see here. And you want to make sure if you want the braid very close to your hairline, that you pinch off a very small amount of hair there at the beginning of your section. If you want your braid to go back further, pinch off that point at where you want the braid to start. I want the braid to start here, so I'm going to pinch off a very small amount and begin braiding. You're going to braid about 3 to 5 times until your right hand is free so that you can feed hair into your braid. So first, just start braiding. So I've braided 5 times. I don't want the braids to go too far back, so braid as infrequent as possible. If you want the braids to go further back, then you can stop at a certain point and add hair. So I just wanted to make sure I braided enough, which was 5 times to release my right hand. And when I add a piece of extension hair, I'm gonna grab it underneath my index finger. So now I'm gonna grab my next section of hair. And you're going to make sure to grip this hair very tightly so that you can grab all of the hairs and you don't have shedding happening with your style. So insert all your fingers through the hair with your thumb on the outside. Take your index finger out like so, or put your index finger through the middle. Wrap your fingers around, holding it very tightly. Insert your thumb to make sure the hair is very tight against your fingers so you can grab all of the hair. So this is how the hair will look in your fingers. Now I'm going to take that section that's right in the middle where there's space for me to grab, and I'm going to place that up towards my head, and I'm going to pinch that area with the index finger of my left hand. So as you can see, I just braided enough to free my right hand, and now I'm going to go underneath this strand of hair. There's hair that's going to hang over your finger. You want to go right in front of it and then hook it underneath the index finger. So you just pinch it with your index finger and let go. The hair that's closest to your face here, that's more forward, will go over your head. You're going to braid about 3 to 5 times to release your right hand again. And then you're going to hook on another strand of hair. The same technique applies. You want to this strand will hang over your finger naturally. You want to add your next strand by going directly in front of this strand here. So you're going to hook right underneath that index finger. So I'm going to grab the next section, locate the middle of that hair, leave my index finger through the opening, wrap the rest of my fingers around very tightly, so that way when I insert my thumb through, I create a very tight amount of space to grab the hair. So now you're going to add it into your braid, and you're going to make sure to go in this way. So the hair is over your finger naturally from the braid. You're going to go in forward, and you're going to hook your index finger on that portion of hair that's in between your thumb and your index. So you're going to grab that hair and then let go. The hair that's more forward, closer towards your face, will go over your head. And you can always use your clips to prevent this hair from falling down. So you're just going to braid a couple more times, about 3 to 5 times, in order to free your right hand again and grab another section. So as you can see, you're just going to pinch it underneath your index finger. Then you let go with your right hand. The hair that's more forward toward your face will go over your head. Then you're going to braid a couple times. To test to see if the hair has been added correctly, drop all of your strands that you've been adding to make sure they're all flowing downward. So as you can see there, all of the 3 strands, 1, 2, 3 that I've added, is flowing in a downward direction. So that way when you want to wear a ponytail, you can lift up the hair to conceal your braid. So for now, put that back over your head and continue the same technique to complete your braid. When I taught you how to braid your very first cornrow tree braid, I also went ahead and braided more braids on my hair. So as you can see, my hair is almost finished, and I'm going to show you once again how your braids need to look. So as I've stated before, you have to make the hair flow downward on your first braid on your right side, your left side, and then the 2 braids in the back of your head as well. So as you can see here, if I push the hair up, the braid is intact, and all of the extension hair that I was adding into the cornrow braid is flowing downward. As you leave the scalp, you want to alternate by taking out pieces of hair on both sides of your braid. This is going to be done with all of your braids, but just with the first braid, all of this hair here on the scalp has to flow downward. So now I'm going to show you how it looks in the very back. The same technique that you've done on your first braid has to also apply, so that when you want to wear your hair into a ponytail, it will conceal your braids. So as you can see here, I have 2 braids in the back. One starts on this side and another starts on this side. And then they both come toward each other, but they're 2 separate braids. And then as you leave the scalp, make sure to alternate, leaving out hair on both sides of your braid. So because the hair is all flowing downward, when you're ready to put it up into a ponytail, it will conceal your braids. So once again, I'm going to show you the cornrow tree braiding technique. Remember, with your first braid, when you fed in the pieces of extension hair, all of the hair had to flow downward. But as I demonstrate on this braid here, which will go for the rest of your braids, you want to make sure that when you add hair, hair alternates by coming out of the braid on both sides. So we're going to start by braiding a regular cornrow with extensions like we've done before. You're going to braid about 3 to 5 times and then add your next strand of hair. So I've braided about 5 times to make sure that I release my right hand like I've always done throughout this style. And I'm going to feed that piece of hair right underneath my index finger like you normally do a cornrow tree braid. So I grab my next strand and position the hair in my hands very tightly so that I can have all of the hairs gathered. I go right back up, and then I'm going to pinch that area of open hair underneath my index finger. Let it go. And the hair that's closest to your face that naturally falls down when you let go of your right hand, you're going to push that over to the side. Now you're going to braid a couple of hands until your left hand is free. As you've been seeing, you always want to make sure that your right hand was free for that first braid, but to make sure that they go back and forth by alternating hairs out of your braid, you got to release your right hand and then your left hand and then back and forth. So I'm going to braid a couple of times until I can release my left hand. So now my left hand is free and I'm going to add another section of hair. So I grab the next section and you're going to position it in your hands the same way. If you're left-handed, positioning in your left hand may be easier. If you're right-handed, it may be a little bit tricky, but it's completely easy. So you're just going to open that hair up the very same way and you're going to pinch it underneath your index finger. So you're going to go right underneath your index finger and pinch that area of hair. Now once you pinch it and you have it on your right hand, just let go of your left hand. The hair that naturally falls more forward toward your face, which is this strand, because this strand is further back, you're going to leave this strand to the side and continue braiding. Now as you can see, my right hand is free again. Grab your next section, position it in your hand. In the area that's open there, you're going to go underneath your index finger. Let go. And you see this hair falls forward, so go ahead and move it to the side. If it helps, make sure to keep these hairs clipped with your duck bill clip or just keep them off to the side. So braid about 3 to 5 times until you can release your left hand again. And then add another strand. So my left hand is free and I'm going to grab my next section of hair and add it as well. If you begin to notice that your braids are becoming thick, what you can do is make sure to take out a little bit of hair from the leg of your braid. So I'm going to show you, for example, how that looks. So I'm going to wait till my right hand is free to show you. So instead of adding another section of braiding hair, I can pinch off some of this extension hair to serve as a leave out. This will prevent your braids from becoming too thick. So you just separate some of the extension hair and make sure it's the extension hair only. Use your fingers to help you to separate the hair and use that as the leave out, and then continue to braid a couple more times. So now here's the left side, and you can do the same thing as well, but if it's a little thin, as you can see here, you can add another piece of extension hair. Continue this same technique until you leave your scalp by alternating different hairs coming out of both sides of the braid. So once you leave your scalp with your cornrow tree braid, you want to make sure that you continue to pull hair out of the braid to complete your look. So when filling in the rest of your braids, remember, you're going to leave hair that alternates on both sides as you're braiding on your scalp. Once you leave your scalp, you're going to alternate hairs out of the braid as well. So here you can see I've braided just a little bit off my scalp and I've left out some hairs here. And this is where I place my clip to hold the hair in place so that I can show you how to continue to take hair out on both sides of your braid. Remember, as you leave the scalp with any braid, continue to alternate on both sides of the braid by leaving out extension hair. And I'm going to show you right now how to do that. So when finishing your braid, you want to make sure that you have your clip nearby just in case you need to hold some hair out of the way so it doesn't fall back in your braid. You're going to position your fingers on your braid. You're going to braid about 2 to 3 times. And then you're just going to pinch off a piece of extension hair. Be very careful to make sure that your real hair is not in this extension hair so that you don't leave any of your real hair out of the style. So I'm just going to take off just a little bit of hair and put that directly over my head. If it falls down or gets back in your way, you can use your clip to hold the hair out of place. So braid a couple more times. You're going to take out hair on the other side of the braid. Just pinch off a little bit. Make sure none of your real hair is in it. And pull it right over your head. Or place the clip right on the braid there to stop it from coming loose. But I can just pull that right over. Now you're going to keep doing this and alternating on both sides of the braid until you braid past your real hair. Once you've braided past your real hair, you're going to do a couple of slip knots to prevent the braid from unraveling. Now just to demonstrate, when you braid past your real hair, you have to do a slip knot to stop the braid from unraveling. So what you want to do is grab your smallest leg of your braid, which is this one, and you're going to pinch off an amount of hair that's about this size. And you're going to wrap it around the braid and form a knot. So you just wrap it around and form a knot with that hair. Now you're going to split this hair in half, and now take the smaller piece and form another knot. And then you're going to do it a third time to finish. So you're going to divide that small piece in half once again. Tie the hair around and form your last knot. By doing those 3 slip knots, that prevents the braid from unraveling. And then you have your finished tree braid. So once you've finished your tree braid, you're going to comb through this hair, and then you're going to snip off any ends that you see as fit to complete your braid. In this step of the cornrow tree braiding hairstyle, I've taught you how to do the tree braiding technique step by step. When doing this technique, there are some things that you're going to specifically do to certain braids to make sure that you can conceal your braids when wearing it into a ponytail. The braid that's immediately to the right side of your head and to the left side of your head, as well as the 2 braids in the back of your head. When you're adding extension hair onto those braids, you have to make sure that all of the hair added flows downward. So when you wear your hair up into a ponytail, it will conceal your braids. And then for the rest of your braids, when you're adding extension hair, you have to alternate pieces of hair that will come out of your cornrow braid. When you leave your scalp as well, you also do the same technique to all of the braids by alternating hairs that will be left out of the braid as well. So I've taught you those techniques as well as how to proportion your extension hair and part your real hair to begin the tree braiding technique. So continue these techniques until your style is completely finished. And then in the next step, step number 3, I will give you some hair care tips for taking care of your tree braids hairstyle.